Vanessa.
How are you doing today? And thank you so much for joining us. Just by way of introduction, I know obviously we've met briefly in the past, and just want to give you a little bit of background on myself. I have more than 25 years of experience in the banking industry, and I'm currently the Chief Data Officer for North America at Commerce Bank. I've been at Commerce Bank for about 10 years now, and I spent the first 9 years as head of IT governance for the Americas. And prior to joining Commerce Bank, I spent a year at Deutsche Bank as a consultant in the investment banking division. I started my career at Credit Suisse, where I spent 16 years serving in numerous capacities within IT. And my background, as far as from an educational perspective, I have a master's degree in applied mathematics from the University of Virginia and a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Minnesota State University. I live in Westchester County, just about 45 minutes north of New York City, in a town called Austin. And I'm happily married with 2 children, ages 19 and 22. And I joined the Women Data Professionals, WDP, last August, and I'm a member of the contents team, focusing on enhancement of the WDP website. So that's a brief background, my brief background. Archana, over to you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hi, I'm Archana Lamichhane. I have a doctorate in environmental epidemiology and have 15 plus of experience in public health research, programs and consultation, both domestically and internationally, and have experience of work in academic, nonprofit, and government settings. Currently, I work in policy area and provide technical knowledge and direction to inform science policy decisions. So transition more from researchy academic background to policy area recently. I'm very passionate when it comes to data and have a strong background in big data management and analytics and application of statistical models in health outcome research. I joined the Women Data Professional Content team 2 years back, and I held the team particularly in capturing the stories of accomplished women data leaders, whether it's via spotlight interview platforms and various other avenues. So before we introduce our guest for today, so let me tell you a little bit about the Women Data Professional Group. So the Women Data Professional Group, which is also known as WDP, is a global organization and part of EDM Council. Our mission is to create community that supports women in the field of data and assist in their development and promotion to senior leadership roles. To inspire the future generations of women, we highlight and celebrate the accomplishments of senior female executive data leaders. And today's spotlight interview is a part of that effort. So Vanessa, would you like to introduce our guest speaker who is here with us today?
Oh, of course. And we're thrilled to have Julia Bardmesser with us today as part of the WDP Spotlight interview series. Julia is CEO of Data for Real, LLC, which is a strategic advisory firm helping CEOs create maximum value from their data, digital, and AI assets. She's also a board advisor to several fintech startups and chair of the Technology Advisory Council of Women Leaders in Data and AI, also known as, WILDA. She's a recognized thought leader in data-driven digital transformation with over 25 years of experience in building technology and business capabilities that enable business growth, innovation, and agility. Julia has led transformational initiatives in many financial services companies, such as Voya Financial, Deutsche Bank, Citi, FINRA, Freddie Mac, and many others. Julia has received various recognitions over the years, such as Best Data Management Practitioner by A-Team Data Management Insight in 2017, top 150 business transformation leader by Constellation Research in 2019. She received the Wilder Changemaker in AI Award in 2022 and was named to the Engatica 2023 list of world's top 200 business and technology innovators. She holds a Master of Arts in Economics from NYU. So thrilled to have you here with us today, Julia, and we warmly welcome you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So with that, let's get started and hear more from Julia. So Julia, can you tell us a little bit more about your current roles and responsibilities and how long you have been in this role?
So I've started my own firm a year ago. So as Vanessa just went through my biography and career, I've spent over 25 years in the industry in various financial services companies, and I've always been focused on how you bring value from data and technology to the business. And I started as a developer, and then I grew through that into like more roles with more responsibility. And then a year ago, I decided that I wanted to try something new. And I wanted to see how I can help more companies and bring my expertise and knowledge and everything I've learned from my career to other companies and help CDOs maximize value of data, make it the organizational priorities, and address the gaps that we have always see in data still, even with the importance of data and all the hype around AI. How do you still make data management ready for using AI and all the other techniques that gonna come across to really make an impact on the business? So a year, I'm developing my own firm. It has its wonderful parts and it has its challenges, so I'm learning.
Actually, that was, as I hear you say that, you've, owned your own firm and in terms of data for real, and interesting to hear, how the transition was from you, because you spent a sizable portion of your career working for major financial services, and now, you own your own firm, a strategic advisory firm. And so what are the biggest differences and maybe even the pros and cons so far? I know you're only a year into, owning your own business, but can you share some, insight?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the fun part is I talk and I meet a lot more people across different industries. So we tend to be very locked into our industries. So I've done financial services for all of my career, and I hardly ever talk to anybody professionally outside of the financial services. Even conferences, majority of the conference tend to focus very specifically on the vertical industry. As my own business, I've reached out much broader, and I worked with biotech company, which was very interesting to me because I had to learn how does biotech company work well enough to be able to help CDO to position his initiatives for value. And I worked with non-for-profit company, which was a lot of fun because now it's not sense and it's achieving the mission. And it's a mission that I happen to believe in as well. And so that was a great experience. Still is. They're still my client. It's still a great experience. Every time I have a conversation with the business, I'm just enjoying myself because it's so wonderful to talk to people who are so passionate about the mission that we all can believe in. So that's one of the great parts about having my own firm. Not so great. For more than 20, 30 years, I've always had a paycheck every 2 weeks. I miss having that. So that's one thing to get used to. The second one, I really never had to sell myself within the company. So I had to present initiatives, I had to explain value. The sales process is fairly uncomfortable. And as we talk through my career and we talk about the major challenges, the challenges is actually not doing the work, always been. has not been for me is how to do the work. It's how to present my work in a way that makes the most impact to my career and to the initiative. So now I have to do more of that. So one of the things I wanted to do is to step into my outside of my comfort zone. So guess what? I'm uncomfortable, and I keep figuring that out. So I don't know if it's a minus, because that was one of the purposes why I did that, because I wanted to create muscles that I didn't have at all. Um, but it's something that I find challenging.
Yeah. Any surprises so far that you've encountered that, as you've transitioned from, working for major financial services firms to now owning your own business? Anything that has surprised you so far that you didn't anticipate?
That's a good question. I guess I knew that from the other side, but it's really present for you when you're on this side, on the consulting side, is how long the first conversation where you have a conversation and you seem like they could be, you can help, to actually get into the point where there is a formal engagement. It's not like, if I think about it, it's not so very surprising, but I was surprised. I was expecting things to happen much faster. And now I know, it's longer. On the positive surprise is that variety of the clients and industries that I now come across. So I was expecting to be mostly involved in financial services clients. And it turns out majority actually of what I do is not financial services. So that's actually a very nice surprise to me, and something that I enjoy very much.
Okay. So how has the learning curve then been, since now you're branching, as you said, most of your projects are non-financial services projects. In terms of the learning curve, how have you found that for specific industries?
Well, it's I always start with, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I don't know anything about it, but over the years, but this is also very similar when you start a new job and you come into a new company. And even though financial services, Vanessa, as you know, even though it's all financial services, the companies are very different. So if you think about my career, for example, start Freddie Mac to FINRA, yeah, both are financial services, very different businesses. And then, yeah, Citi and Deutsche Bank may be similar in terms of the business they do, but then structure of the bank, culture of the bank, how you get things done is also different. And then Voya is a completely different animal. Again, financial services, but very different business than Citi and Deutsche Bank, for example. So it's always, and over the years, having changed jobs on average about every 4 years or so, 4 to 5 years, that feeling of, okay, what did I get myself into? How am I gonna figure all of this out is very familiar to me. It's like I always get that feeling on the new job. So at this point, I just trust myself that I will get over it. I will figure that out. But yeah, so the learning curve is a little stiffer on the side of subject matter, but I trust myself that I can figure that out. And now, Vanessa, it was interesting. I was listening to you. Education is in mathematics. My undergraduate education is also in mathematics. And I feel that mathematics is probably one of the best educations to have, because there is a lot of complexity. And it builds your belief that you can figure it out. Not that actual mathematical concepts help you. I haven't used pretty much nothing from my mathematical education in my career. But what it does is that ability to figure this out and trust in yourself that if you have figured out all the things you need to do for calculus 4, whatever, my math education was not in United States. So I actually, that's the part where I have hard time knowing all the names in English. But I think it's, what is it? Advanced forms of calculus. I don't want to do translation from Russian. But if you figure that out, you can figure out the business. And I said that's why I think math education, one of the best educations to have for pretty much any career, because builds your trust in yourself.
Absolutely. I completely agree. It gives you those really foundational analytical skills that you can, basically take anywhere and, sort of, be able to tackle any problem in a very methodical manner. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. I do.
Yeah.
Archana, I don't know if you have any, questions that you want to chime in with.
No, I think you covered most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, quick question for you, Julia. Are you solo basically, or do you have staff that you work with as part of Data for Real? Tell us a little bit about how the company is structured.
Right now, it's just me, and that's on purpose. So right now, I don't have anybody. I don't want to be. I'm still beginning, and if you have other people working for you, you're responsible for payroll. So at this point, I do not want to be responsible for for the payroll. I do have partners. So if I come across an initiative, actually, phone call I just had earlier today with one of the consulting companies that I can partner with, if I come across a project that's bigger than just me, I can partner. So I have a series of partners in different areas. So there is around data management. There is a company that does really well with metadata management, data catalog implementations for financial services. So if I come across or I'm involved in the engagement that requires that type of expertise, we would go together. If I need technology development, people resources, so there is another company. So I have partner companies that if this is broader than just my skill set, because I focus very much on strategy, on roadmap, on figuring out minimal viable product, on overall target state architecture on a conceptual level. I don't really do implementations, but obviously there is implementation portion to it. And depending on who I work with, there may or may not be resources to do the implementation within the company. So there is a lot of partnerships that I've developed, and I'm still developing. I talk to people all the time, because if I'm bringing them into the engagement, I want to make sure that they will do the work that I would be happy with as a client.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, experiences you have, like, right, vast experience in industry and then starting your own company. Can you also share, we would love to hear more about some exciting project like you have worked in your career so far, and why is that?
Are you so a project within the past year or previously overall?
Can be anything, like a project that you would like to highlight, and what was that exciting project, and why do you consider that as an exciting project?
So the one I actually talked about, so of my experience last year, the one I'm talking about, biotech company, that was very exciting. The part was because I had to learn how biotech actually, how you create, what's the process, how they grow, what are the levers, and then position data strategy as an enabler to growth and help CDO to get funding, to get agreement from the business instead of resistance that was his experience before, to get full buy-in and leadership from the business areas on the strategy that they wanted to pursue. So that was very exciting, because it was, again, between figuring out how to do it for a business I didn't know, and then being really able to help in a very short time frame to position it in a way that made it much smoother. That was a very exciting part for me. Generally, actually, what I've done at Voya was one of the highlights of my career. Because again, I came in, and it's a usual company over, 30, 40-year-old company that grew through acquisition and very little integration. So the data, for sure, it was enough to be, it's a very successful business. So they could do the business, but they couldn't leverage the data for growth and business value and for the efficiency. So that was my goal. How do you build data strategy and data environment to bring that ability to bear the power of data for the growth of the company. And again, figuring that out, building the data strategy, business data strategy, roadmap, and then executing. I had the full engineering team under me as well, and building that and seeing the results of it, seeing the results of having that environment and seeing how much positive change that brought to the company. That was one of the highlights of my career as well.
Great. So would you, I know you said that it's you know, was one of the most exciting projects you've worked on. Would you say that it was also the most challenging one, or not necessarily?
Well, it was, there were a lot of challenges as well. Of course, when you come into CDO position, there are a lot of challenges within the organization. There is a lot of communication you need to do. There is also a lot of technical things that you have to figure out. You have to build a team as well. Sometimes that's very challenging. How do you build a team that will move your vision forward? So yeah, there were a lot of challenges in that, but I think I would put it on the more exciting portion, because overall, as I look back and see, it gives me a very warm feeling. Like my experience at Voya was really great. So when I think of a challenging one, so is when I look back and I see, even though the technical part, technology part was done really well, cultural part was not done as well, because I didn't understand enough, or the company was not ready, or leadership change that happens, and the cultural part was not ready for the technology part, so there wasn't as much benefits derived from what's been built. So I find that, looking back at my career, that part more challenging than when you actually see the use of what you've built.
Yeah.
That's great. So can you also talk a little bit about the challenges? I know you have so much vast experience in the business and technology transformation, as a renowned data leader. We would also love to hear a little bit more about the challenges you have faced or continue to face as a senior female leader in particularly male-dominated environment. What are some of the challenges that, like project-specific challenges, you already highlighted those, but as a senior female leader, like in terms of in that space, which is male dominated, what are the kind of a thing you face or have faced in the past?
So one of the biggest challenges in my career, and that comes from, again, coming from technical backgrounds, so mathematics, economics, if in mathematics, you figure out how to prove the theorem, you're good, you're done. You don't have to explain to professors why proving a theorem is a good thing. So this is my background. You just do the work, and it gets recognized because you did the work. It took me about 15 years to figure out just doing the work is not enough. Especially as I moved into data, especially before the crisis and before data management became hot, and now with AI, it's really hot. So having to explain why what you did is important and valuable and hard. It took me about 15 years that's a big part of my job. As I grow in my career, I have to learn how to communicate the value, how to communicate the challenges, and how to make it really clear to both business and technology, or my bosses, basically the leadership team, why what I'm doing is important, difficult, and challenging, and I need both more resources and sometimes more time and sometimes funding, and also appreciation for everything I and my team do. So that was a big learning, and that kind of continues because I've gotten good enough to be in the roles that I have been. I still have to actively think about it. I still natively go into let's figure out how to make it work, and not let's figure out how to communicate. So, and my practice, and this is part of actually data for real, because what I help CDOs with is not only how to make it work, but the big part is how do you effectively communicate. So I keep stretching that muscle. So that's and building it, and that's what's interesting about data for real, like doing data for real as well. in terms of being a woman in a male-dominated, especially financial industry. So not only I'm a woman in male-dominated industry, but for many, many years, I was the only woman in the room and the only person in the room with an accent.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. Not really. Because you feel really sometimes very alone. And even though, and I've had comments about my accent. Sometimes they were nice comments, sometimes not so nice, but you have to get over it. And but what it does is that to come to a senior leadership meeting. So I have an example. It was, well, one of the large banks I've worked at, and I was in executive committee level meeting. So we had CFO, CRO, CTO, and CDO at the table. And it was a meeting talking about data strategy in response to the regulators. And I had my portion that I was going to speak to, and I was about 3 minutes late to the meeting, and imagine really large room, really large oval table, and everybody sitting around it, and there is one seat open, and it's between CFO and CRO. And then there's seats in the back. So I come in and I look at it, and my first reaction is to go sit in the back. And I'm on the way there, and then I kind of stop myself, like, I have a speaking part. I belong at this table. I'm gonna sit at the table.
Yeah. Good for
And
you.
I sat down. It was all good. Neither CFO nor CRO were biting at that point, so it all worked out well. But that's something that I had to get over myself and make my voice heard. Because sometimes, as a woman, what happens is that you say something and it's not really heard. And so how do you make yourself heard? How do you make your point? How do you insist on being heard in a way that's not perceived as confrontational? Because you have to be strong, but you can't really be confrontational, right? We have to walk a very thin line to be effective, but not being perceived as somebody who's angry. So
completely agree. It's hard to walk that fine line, right?
Yes.
Balancing things in between. It's a follow-up question, like, have you ever been pushed back on the ideas you have presented? And if so, like, what have you done? Like, what did you do in those kind of situations?
Wait, say it again. Sorry, I missed part of your question.
Like, if you have ever pushed back in terms of ideas you have presented, like, right, like we are talking about male-dominated environment and sometimes how things can go unseen, or right. So I was just wondering if you have in your career, if you have ever been pushed back by for ideas you have presented, and in those situations, what did you do? How did you overcome?
Of course, it's happened. So first time when that happened, or the first few times when it happened, I kind of faded, because it's very difficult to figure out in the moment, if you haven't dealt with it before or haven't dealt with it on that stage, how to deal with it. So of course you kind of sit back and then beat yourself up after the fact. I mean, I think we all do that. That happens. But the way my brain works and the way I approach everything, okay, that didn't work the way I expected it to work. What can I do next time to make it better? So I became much more mindful in preparation for those types of meetings. So I used to be, again, I have a lot of faith and confidence in my own ability to think on the spot and to deal with any situation. And when that happened, I realized, well, I need to be much more prepared, and I need to think through what could be the objections and how to handle them. But another one, something that took me a while to figure out, but I've started doing it very consistently, is if you go into that type of meeting and you expect the resistance, you have to do pre-meetings. So you have to meet with people, you need to think about where the resistance is going to happen and who are your supporters, and you need to build enough of support line, and maybe also meet with the resistors as well to figure out where you can come to the current. So in the meeting, you're not the lone voice. So I put something out there, and there is a supporter who would come and would back me up. So that's why when you have meetings, you have a motion and somebody seconding the motion. So think about that there should be at least one more voice that supports you after you speak. I also, I don't have to have first move advantage all the time. It's totally fine to find the person who is best positioned to move your idea forward, have a bunch of conversation with them and have them move it forward and you support it. You don't have to own or every single idea. It's fine to give it to somebody else to create the movement, because what I'm trying to do, not only to progress my career, but to do what's right for the company. That's the major thing. It's very important to me to do what's right for the company. So you figure out what's the best way to move it forward. Of course, again, being very mindful, but it's not just, you do want to move your career forward and you want to be seen. So all of those strategies and tactics of dealing with it have their place. You need to weigh pluses and minuses. So one of the things that became very real to me is to be much more mindful about political capital I have. How do I want to spend it? How do I get more political capital so I can send it more? So again, took me about, I would say 20 years in my career to get to the theory of political capital and start being very mindful about it.
That's great. Vanessa, you have anything?
You know, as I listen to you, Julia, and know a little bit about you, have read your bio. I know you do a ton of speaking engagements, and obviously have you have this leading with data newsletter, which I really like, by the way.
Thank you.
I subscribe to it, and what I really like about it is that you provide tips in bite-sized chunks every week. You provide one actionable tip and on how to accelerate the business potential of data and make it an organizational priority. So just wanted to kind of inject that into the conversation that I subscribe to it, and that I really enjoy reading it. But the question that I was going to ask you, you have that going on, you have a ton of speaking engagements, you obviously have your clients, how do you do it all and be so successful?
Well, somehow it gets done, so newsletter, I think I found an approach which works well enough where it doesn't take huge amount of my time. So when I started writing more on LinkedIn, last year, obviously coinciding with starting my own business, it took enormous amount of my time. And it took me a while to figure out how to be useful and heard on LinkedIn. There are tons of newsletters there. There is, I think, I don't know how many data or AI related newsletters gets published every day. So how do you make a distinctive voice, and how do you make it useful to people and to my audience? That took me a while to figure out. So I think at this point, I got to the point where it's very manageable. It used to take up probably most of my weekend. Like I would spend Saturday and Sunday figuring out what to say, how to say, replying. So now it's easier. I enjoy conferences a lot. They don't take huge amounts of time, though. I mean, just the conference itself, that does. But I meet a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people. I can present my views. So it's more between doing the work and talking to potential clients and weighing it. So again, I try to, there is a calendar to schedule time with me. I play quite a bit with the amounts that I open up. So when I have more client work, that windows shrink. They're still there, but they shrink. And when I have less work from the clients, obviously the amount of time available for prospects, or for somebody to just talk to me, I increase that. So I try to control it that way. I'm still figuring it out. I don't think I have it fully figured out. Like I'm teaching at TDWI, so I have to fly to Las Vegas. It's a full day teaching. So there is travel involved. So that kind of also has to be managed in terms of the timeline. But again, work in progress. But so far, I just try to be very mindful of my calendar. One of the things I had to learn how to do, because for years I had an assistant who was managing my calendar. And when I came on my own, so there were two interesting things. First is how to manage my own calendar in a way that I don't have holes like for months, because I gave somebody 5 times 2 hours each and I haven't heard back. So now I have holes. So Calendly helps a lot with that. The second piece that I had to remember how to do was how to do PowerPoint. Because again, I had people who, in my last 3 jobs, that I would talk, I would put some ideas, but I didn't need to worry about how to make it really impactful, how to bring pictures in. I had to learn. Well, before that I had to do it. So I had to go back about, I don't know, 10 years and remember how to do the PowerPoint. Of course, PowerPoint moved on in terms of uh, capabilities it gives you. So I've now gotten back to being reasonably okay. I still need to get better at it. Or maybe at this point, I need to hire somebody to help me with the PowerPoint. So they're a little bit more polished. I do my best, but sometimes I'm like looking at, yeah, could be better. Everything can always be better. That's another thing.
Right.
You have to figure out where you need to concentrate and really work on getting better. And some things are okay. They can be better, but enough of other things are really good. So, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all those great insights for juggling between multiple projects, right? And making it work, trying to make it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So I know, thank you for sharing all those professional insights, so let's divert a little bit towards the personal experience side as well. So tell us about a person who inspired you in the past or inspires you at the present, and why you admire that person.
Well, that's actually quite personal because it's my grandmother. So I mentioned, right, I came into this country in 1990 from Soviet Union. My grandmother came slightly later, like 5 years later, but what she was a scientist. So she was a professor of material science. She was teaching, she was leading a lot of PhD students. She also led one of the largest research labs in material science in one of the premier material science institutes in Kiev. She had clearance. She was involved in Soviet Union space program. She was also involved in Soviet Union armament program. I mean, that's material science we're talking about, right? When Chernobyl blew up, she was one of the scientists approached like a day or two later, because they were trying to cover the reactor. And she was one of the scientists approached to figure out what to put on top of the reactor, not to make it worse, because some things you put on top of radiation, they release more radiation, not a good material. She never told me about that. She actually, well, because it was Soviet Union and Chernobyl, it was a secret till West found out about it. She knew about it way before, for example, I did. And she never mentioned, because she took all of that really seriously. And she actually got into this. See, speaking of accents, I just got a comment from Zoom asking confirm your speaking language. Interesting, isn't it? Did I lose you guys? Yeah. It's like, I think it's English.
I know.
So anyway, so back to the story about my grandmother. She did her PhD when she was 50. So all of this that I've just talked about started in her life when she turned 50. Before that, she was an engineer in the lab, so one of the workers, and all of that trajectory that I talked about, leading and teaching and traveling and doing and going to the conferences, writing the books. Till now, I mean, recently I checked, it's no longer on Amazon, but about 5 years later, 5 years ago, it was still on Amazon in English, my grandmother's book. So writing books, all of that happened after 50, which I find incredibly interesting, because so you have a woman in Soviet Union in 1970s and 1980s. That was incredibly unusual. Think about like a woman being in men's environment, what we have is nowhere close to what she had to deal with. The amount, and she had some stories where she was asked during her PhD dissertation defense questions that were just, and I don't know enough of chemistry to be able to repeat that question, but she was asked questions that were very simplistic and tricky at the same time. And it was because she was a woman and they were just trying to trick her. So she had to deal with a lot of that, and she dealt with it with a lot of grace. So I deeply admire her. I spent a lot of time with her as I was growing up. Again, Soviet Union, we all lived in the same apartment, and we traveled together. It's a huge influence in my life, and it's also inspires me because I'm over 50 now as well. Like, I don't think you can do a lot more things. So a lot of things still open because sometimes, especially when I talk a lot to the friends of my daughter, and she's 24. And they ask me for advice, and I do. But sometimes I get that sense that I'm kind of ancient, and I'm done, and I can only give advice. I'm like, no, I'm not ancient, and I'm not done, and there is tons of stuff I can still do. And if I keep using my head, and I keep doing new things, I can keep doing it and enjoy my life in many different ways.
So on that note, though, I mean, a perfect segue as we begin to wrap up is, you've obviously shared, a lot of valuable insights with us, both from a professional and a personal perspective. If you sort of were to summarize some key tips or advice that you would give to aspiring female data professionals who are looking to advance their careers in the field, like what are some of the top key tips you would or advice that you would give them?
Well, the first advice is step out of your comfort zone. Always be on the lookout when you keep doing something you've always been doing because you're sure you can do this, and stop doing that. Step out, identify opportunities to step out outside of your comfort zone. If you have a job coming your way, or you see a job that you find interesting but you're not entirely sure you can do, go for it. You can do it. Believe in yourself, and you don't need to know everything for the job. If you understand generally what to do, and you know about 50, 60 to 70% of how to do the job, this is good. Just go. So be brave, step outside of the comfort zone, keep making yourself uncomfortable, because that's how we learn, and this is how we innovate. Don't be afraid of failing. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So this is corollary to stepping outside of the comfort zone and doing things you haven't done before. Some of them will work out, some of them will not. Analyze it. Don't beat yourself up. Just analyze what happened, figure out what to do better next time, do it better next time, and then go do something else you don't know how to do. So that's the main one. Obviously, keep learning. There is so much new stuff coming out. They've always been, but it seems like velocity of the new things coming up is increasing. Sometimes it's very hard to keep track of all of it, but just keep thinking through it, keep reading, keep learning, and keep relating it to what you already know. Because even things like AI seem like completely outside of what we've been doing so far. It's not. It's all based on what we know that is new. And so if you keep up with it, it's not so very overwhelming.
Great advice. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Archana, I don't know if you have any other questions. If not.
Yeah, no, I think those are all great insights, Julia, for sure. Like, you give us a lot on, professional and personal growth and how to tackle challenges and come out of it, right, stronger and better. Wonderful. I appreciate all the conversation we are having here today. So maybe we can move on, Vanessa.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I guess at this juncture, we would like to add a fun element to the interview to get to know you just a little bit better. We have some rapid fire questions, if you will, that we're going to ask you, which hopefully will help us learn, like I said, a little bit more about your interests and your personality, beyond your professional qualifications. So there are no right or wrong answers to the questions, and they just require like one-word responses. So I guess, let's get started. The first question is, favorite vacation spot?
Oh, that and I only get to get one word.
Yes.
Well, of the recent one, Vietnam. Did you hear my answer? Because
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. No, I didn't. No.
oh, okay. Of the recent ones,
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Oh, okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next is coffee or tea?
Tea.
Favorite app?
Oh, favorite app. Got to be Google. Like,
Early
how
bird.
we gonna live without Google, you know?
Yes. Can't think of a life without Google. The next one is early bird or night owl?
Oh, neither. My best time, I think, between 8 a.m. in the morning and 10 p.m. at night. So night, I like my sleep in, but not too much, and I like to go to bed relatively early. So, daytime.
Okay. Sweets or savory?
Cheese. Cheese and chocolate.
Okay.
What's your favorite emoji?
Oh, smiley face. I'm not all that much into emojis. I try not to offend my daughter with my use of them because, once in a while she tells me, like, no, mom, that's not what you use for this.
Yeah,
So I play it safe. I stick to just smiley face.
Yeah,
yeah.
I learn from my kids every day what that emoji means.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Sometimes I put something and all of a sudden are you upset with me? I'm like, no, I'm not. Why? Well, you put this. I'm like, well, I didn't know that meant I was upset with you. I just, you know.
So keep it simple, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you for indulging us, Julia. This was great. And,
This is fun.
yeah. It was such a meaningful session and valuable session, and such rich conversation with you. And we really do appreciate you, taking the time to speak to us. You're a very busy woman, of course, but like I said, we do appreciate the time that you took to, spend this hour with us, and the valuable insights that you provided from both a professional and personal perspective, the challenges that you've shared with us and how you overcame them, your transition from working for major financial services firms to now owning your own business, and the challenges that come with that, the lessons that you're learning 1 year into owning your own business, and the valuable tips that you've shared in terms of being a female leader in this male dominated environment, how you've overcame those challenges and how you continue to overcome those challenges. So really appreciate your time with us and the valuable insights.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I echo Vanessa, and on behalf of WDP team, Julia, Vanessa, and I would like to thank you for taking your time, valuable time today, and share all your experiences and stories. This is absolutely inspiring. I mean, I learned a lot from this too, and I'm sure all of our viewers will find it extremely intriguing as well. So thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your stories.
Thank you. really appreciate, and it was a lot of fun being here. And I'm also a huge fan of Women Data Professional. I've been part of it for a really long time. Especially, I just wanted to call out the mentorship program in WDP. I've been a mentor in that for, well, for as long as it's been running. I think it was 2 years now. We're going into a third year. And I think there's so much value this organization brings to women in the industry. So thank you for having me. It was a very enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, thanks again, Julia.